Should I care if my people are not happy at work? This is a question that I was asked when giving a talk on creating value in teams. And I can assure you that this created a healthy and interesting debate. Why not discuss this today with you? Whenever we talk to people about this idea of happiness at work, some people come back and say that it's overrated. In fact, one of the people at the workshop mentioned the fact that they can still see some aspect of productivity at work. So why should I care if some people are not particularly happy in what they are doing? To them, the question I have to ask is, what is the cost of burnout and stress has on your people? They will take time off and you will have to pay for that time off whilst the work is not being done. What is the cost that negative conflict has on your team? A lot of people are arguing, but you are not making progress, which will in fact affect your bottom line. And more importantly, what is the impact on your customers? The customer satisfaction. When your people are happy, customers can see that because of the productivity level that increases, the service or the level of service that they receive, and much more. So if you really want to answer that question, should I care if my people are happy or not? Well, I will ask you, do you care about your bottom line? Do you care about the satisfaction of your customer? And more importantly, do you care about your people? Welcome to the Mary Poppins of Startups live show. I'm Naili Makangu from Athena Leaders, a company that's excited about helping startups dream, build, and play whilst leaving behind the legacy of a happy and productive workplace playground. For those who are new to the show, well, if you have any question, do ask us. Hashtag Athena Leaders. It doesn't matter if you are not live. We always answer. Number two, if you know anyone who will be a great guest on this show, tell them to reach out to us. We are finalizing the lineup for the second quarter of the year, and it's going to be absolutely exciting. I can't wait. Number three, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. So today we're going to look at this idea or answer the question, why are people not happy at work? So if you are a leader out there and that is really bothering you, especially when it comes to the lack of productivity or the stress, what is it that I want to start looking at, and how can I help my middle managers even to also start doing a bit of a deep dive into their teams to understand why people are not happy? Three things that we are going to look at. Yes, I know there's many more reasons out there, but today I'm going to give you the three tools that I use when I work with startup as part of advisory sessions, or even when I'm part of a team and I'm trying to lead them forward. The first one is direction. We're going to look at leadership, and we're going to look at collaboration. Direction. My biggest issue when it comes to unhappiness at work that people don't notice is this idea of not having a clear vision. An unclear vision is very, very difficult for the team. I see that a lot, even when I work for startup I've worked for startups in the past, or even now. When you have a clear idea of what you want your product to be, but of course, if one part of your company has sold the wrong product to the clients, you end up having two different products that you are maintaining in the company. And if the situation is not managed, what tends to happen is that most of the companies focus on product one, which is the main one, the one that follows the vision of what the company is to be. The second part of the company is focused on product two, which technically should never have existed in the first place. But hey-ho, you had to adjust for the clients. Now, when those kind of issues impact the visions is when you have one team that continues to sell the second product for whatever reason, but at the same time, there has never been a discussion where you said, this is what our product, the product one is what we want, or maybe a discussion that says, let's just accept it and let's start having two products. This is just a very, very small example that I see how it hurts people, because the two parts of the company, those who want to support one aspect of the vision or the other, start to argue because of the level of service to the customer, the level of investment in their time and the work that they do. Is very difficult for them to realize which one do I need to focus on, why are we doing this. So make sure that the vision that you have as an overarching vision statement, mission statement, is actually something that is lived and breathed in the company, all the way from your products, what you are, the way you are delivering your services, how you are setting up your operation, your culture, and absolutely everything. So one thing you want to write down, take paper and pen, and just as a quick thing, write this for yourself. Is the vision that I have in my head the same as the vision that is shared and lived within my company? Answering that question will really help you answer the question of why your people are not happy, and you can start modifying that. Continuing with the vision idea, what about vision difference, the differences in vision when it comes to co-founders? That's a big one. I was advising a startup in Spain, and they already reached product market fit. And by that, I mean they already had loyal customer that was coming back, buying their products. They were doing okay. Their cash flow was positive. It was a great place to be. As the company was growing, though, you could feel a friction, and the friction can be felt and seen through negative conflict within the team, but it really came from the position of the co-founders. One co-founder wanted to move on with the company. That co-founder was responsible for the operations and the sales. And of course, he wanted the company to grow. He saw ways the product could have been diversified and grow. The second co-founder, the person initially starting the company and had the idea, wanted to have a smaller size company. She was happy with what they had. She was happy with the money that they were making. She knew that, yes, there's a potential where we could diversify our products and attract different markets, but she wasn't really keen on the work of doing all of that. And that became a clash, as one side of the company will go out there and share a different message in terms of what the future of the company will look like, whilst the other one will share a different one. This level of differences in vision really affect people. As I've mentioned before, it's really hard for teams on a day-to-day basis when they get requests from people from other departments to help them, to support them on sales calls, to support them with customers. If it's clash with the vision, what do we do? How do I use my time? That level of questioning and anxiety does affect the productivity of your people. And in fact, this is something that I experienced myself when I was working as a software engineer. I was working for a large company, and one of the things that started to happen was that we're thinking about growing the product, diversifying the product, and also to start to make it available to other platforms like tablets and stuff like that. But one of the issues was that the team was becoming bigger and the story was changing based on the sites. We had one team in Cambridge, one team in India, one team in the US. And of course, everybody shared different roadmap, different goals, and different vision. How on earth are we meant to work well together? I starting to lose a little bit of passion of my work because every single day there was an issue that came from the collaboration aspects as well as the direction and the leadership. And I'll speak more onto that and what I did later on in this episode. The third thing to think about when it comes to the direction aspects is the lack of roadmaps or goals. And that is a big one. This is the one that really frustrates me, especially because I'm someone who loves to be organized, love to help people to be organized. And it's not just, organization for the sake of it. Whenever people talk about this idea of putting together processes or project governance, people always feel like, oh, well, no, this is for big companies. We are startups, we're more agile, we're more flexible. We can just do whatever and move on. The point of having the minimum amount of processes is to help people to stop thinking about how they do their jobs and to do their jobs well. The less time you spend on how to do it, you more focus on actually doing the job and figure out the answers that come to the question relating to your work, rather than which tool do we use to collaborate? How are we going to work on XYZ? You get to the end of the week, you're not even sure which member of your team is doing what. One of the questions I ask the leaders I work with, especially when I start an engagement, is this. If I had to wake you up in the middle of the night, which I probably won't do, but bear with me here. If I had to wake you up in the middle of the night and I ask you what are the main initiatives that are running in your company as a whole, not just the one that you have your eyes set on, how long will it will it take for you to not just tell me the names, who's running it, and what is the current status? Having one document like that is huge and really, really changes a company in terms of the way that everybody is centered. They know what the vision is and what they are working on. So creating a simple roadmap could be the difference between the make or break of your startups. First, you will be aware of realistically what is it that you are doing. Are you taking on more or not? Sometimes you're thinking this department is only looking at 2 things, but when you start digging that deep down, you might realize that one department is overworked, which leads to other departments being overworked based on things that are not even part of the priority. So having a clear roadmap, a clear goal in your company, and goals that the team knows, every department knows how they link together, will really help increase this level of clarity. Especially when working on the startups, again, like I've said, I've seen this in large organizations as well. It's not just startup related, but the other issue that startups struggle with by not having a clear direction, roadmap, vision is the fact that they usually work at a faster pace. And if you are not collocated, working at a faster pace, and people don't know what's going on, it's very easy to have everything turn up into a mess. So there you have it. Those are some of the things that you could look at. If you believe that your people are not happy, start with the direction. And again, I put direction first because this is exactly what I do when I go into a company. I ask them a lot of questions to understand how they are set up in terms of direction, vision. If it's blurry at the top, it will be blurry everywhere. And if it's blurry everywhere, then it starts with negative conflict, stress, burnout, and everything that leads to your people not being happy. As I said before, if you have any question, hashtag Athena Leaders, whether you are live or not, we always answer. We answer you live. And if you do love this and you know a leader out there, startup leader, manager that could benefit from this, do share the episode. It's actually free to share. We don't charge you for that. The second aspect we look at is leadership. And leadership is another really, really important thing that I look at. So in terms of the leadership, there's one thing that I call invisible leadership. So that's when you have a manager or a team leader, a department leader that exists but do not exist. Invisible leadership really, really hurts teams. You can see that a lot in early years companies or startups when being a founder means that you are absolutely everywhere. You have to deal with investors, you have to raise money, you have to deal with the product and so many other problems that are popping up every single day that sometimes is very easy to forget checking in on your team. But unfortunately, I've been a victim of invisible leadership as well in larger companies or medium-sized companies. Have you ever worked for a company where you wonder whether you even have a manager or not? Your one-to-one happens only if you remind them, at which point they will postpone it a few times before actually having a one-to-one with you. They probably don't understand the main issue that you are working on, your main problems, and maybe the team are coming together to support each other rather than actually having a sense of working well with the managers being part of the team. Having an invisible leadership really affects the morale of people. And especially if you have people who are not independent by nature, people who seek reassurance or people who love the team feeling, then not having a strong leadership, a strong manager that can help navigate that and help them and support them, help them become more independent, will lead to some people not being happy, not doing well at work, which eventually affects the entire team. The second aspect when it comes to leadership, and that you're wondering, is this affecting my team and my people? That one, I called it leading with ego. I see that a lot in organization. And sometimes when I see a lot of display of egos, especially in small company growing up, I always try to see what's hiding below that. Is it just something that we see on the surface, but below is actually the lack of leadership skills? It's a really important question to ask. I come from a very technical background. I used to be a software engineer, and then I went into leadership. So I first started by leading technical teams, large projects, programs, then products, and so much more until I started my own company. And even through my transition, one of the things that I experienced was this anxiety of going into the unknown. You go to university or wherever your career was, you get to work and you focus so much on the earliest years working in STEM. In general, other industry have that as well, but I focus more on STEM and technical aspect of technology. We spend so much time focusing on the hard skills, not so much on the soft skills. Whether you want to talk, you're good at talking to people or not, it doesn't matter. You can be a technical person that's customer facing, at which point it's important that you talk well with customers. But if you're internally facing, it's not that important. But what happens when, especially in the startups, the first few employees are very, very good technically, gets promoted. Well, if they don't have any leadership skills, they won't just create them out of nowhere. They will learn by making mistakes on the job. Luckily for me, I spent most of my life volunteering, where I was leading teams, leading projects, leading organizations even in my volunteering times, where I honed my leadership skills, which I brought to my work and kept on making it better over time. But if you realize that the people that you've promoted because they were in the company for a long time are lacking the leadership skills, then what you're going to end up having is a lot of micromanagement, which, trust me, kills motivation. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. And usually the source of micromanagement comes from the fact that people cannot delegate, they don't have the delegation skills, or they are not strong on dealing with conflict, they are not strong with leadership skills, things that can be fixed. And when you work with someone, you work with a manager, which emphasize my way or no way, I'm not going to listen to you because I'm your boss. Any kind of disagreements ends because they have the power. Whenever someone really uses their titles, their powers, I always wonder, one, should they really stay in your company and affect the culture? Two, if they are going to stay, how can you help their leadership skills so that they can let go of power as a way of reducing their anxiety, but actually use strong, good skill set so that they can lead properly. So if your company is suffering from a lack of strong leadership, well, it's obvious that your people are not going to be happy. And there's something that you can do about that. One advice I give to companies, especially whether I do a leadership program, like a 2-day, 1-day, or even just a advisory session, is to avoid the temptation of sending someone on a course, especially someone that you've noticed that maybe this is their first time leading and they might not be comfortable with that. Someone who you believe needs to improve their soft skills, which are not that as soft as people make it sound like. My advice is to make sure that you are giving them a bit more support after the course. What I see a lot of people coming to my courses is great. They do learn a lot. The problem is when they go back to the real world, the situations are complex. A lot of things happen. They are dealing with other people who might not have been trained in leadership or soft skills. They might struggle to deal with negative conflicts or delegation. They might feel a little bit uneasy, but they have nobody else to speak to. So the easiest way would be to bring a coach that's allocated to your middle managers to help them on the journey, even for a short period of time, or even have that as a group coaching where you get some of your managers to talk about some of the things that they cannot tell maybe to their boss or they cannot tell to their line, the people they are managing. This will really go a long way in terms of helping your people be happy at work. Remember, happiness is not just this fluffy thing. It really, there is an impact between being happy at work to being excited about getting to work. I know it's going to be hard. It's going to be fast-paced. We don't have all the resources that we want, but I just love being part of this journey, and I give my 100%. A lot of people that want to work at startups already have this feeling of, I want this company to be a success. All you can do to help them continue with that feeling, especially when the times becomes difficult, is by making sure that you give them the clear direction and the leadership that they need to be able to continue moving forward. So there's one question that came up on this idea of blurry vision and goal not being set up properly. So I'm going to read it out to you. Great point on blurry vision and goals not set up properly. How do you handle this on the onset? Well, when I get to a company and I realize that there is a lack of vision and goals, I just go back to the leadership team and ask them to clarify what their vision is, right? Ask them to clarify even just a map of what is that they want to achieve in this year, the next 2 years, and the 5 years. And then once they've clarified that, I ask them to look at what is it they are actually doing right now, and if that maps to what the leadership, to what the vision are. So we will quickly see that some people will start working on something that don't work. So for example, there was one company that wanted to build a system, and the second part of that system to build an AI or a data science capability, so that they can read the information from that system, and then they can start saying, oh, if a client has bought this, then it means that they might want something else, right? But my vision was that the second part of the AI was something that could really be useful maybe 3 years from now. But they're already starting working on the prototype from year zero, when they didn't even have the data that can go with it. So when we start looking at the vision, was to build a data science capabilities on top of existing application. My question was, you don't even have the existing application built. Why are you spending the money on the data science aspect? You are not Google, you are not Microsoft, you're a small company, money matters, budget matters. So that's how, just by asking question on the vision, who you want to be, where you want to go, and then looking at what is currently happening, you can see the correlation. Now, if you are leading a team and you might not be the part of the C-suite and you want to do the same exercise, it's very easy. Get your team together and start thinking about what is it that you are working on, right? It doesn't have to be clear projects, but kind of write down every one paper that shows everything that people are working on. Then sit with your manager and ask them whether this is the vision that they had for the team based on the goals and the KPIs. You can have a clear comparison if you have the goals and the KPIs and see, is if we focus so much on this, are we going to hit that aspect of things or not? So just asking the small questions, as you can see, you can come from two aspects. One, if you are on the C-suite, it's easier, or if you're working with them, you work with the executive team and you can ask them that question directly. But if you are as part of a team, you can actually challenge your manager, get your team to do that exercise, and you might actually realize that there are certain work that stresses you out that can actually be delayed if it's not part of the direction or the vision of the company. So that's how I help teams to regain some headspace, reduce the stress level, and which leads to make you happier and more productive at work. I hope that this answers your question. So we're going to move on to the last part, the last aspect, which is the collaboration. Collaboration is also another very important aspect of happiness at work. In fact, as I've mentioned at the beginning of the live today, was that I started as a software engineer and I ended up in leadership by mistake. Like I call myself the reluctant leader at the time, was because it was either I do this or I quit. The choice was simple. What was happening was that I was working for a team that I absolutely loved. It was amazing. It was very, very Cambridge-like. It's actually difficult to explain unless you live in Cambridge. But it was a team that I was really passionate being part of that team. Unfortunately, fortunately, we decided to challenge ourselves by building a larger version of our product, changing some aspect of the core of the product, which meant that we needed more engineers and more testers. The team grew from those working on the project being in one country, on one site in Cambridge, to developers and testers in the US, again, the West Coast, and then India. So you can imagine we went from working, in isolation in our own little town to having to collaborate with people in different continents and with huge, time zone differences as well. So that led to the big collaboration problem, because I will get to work really excited. I'm one of the weird people that actually love Mondays. I'll get to work first thing in Monday, start working on something. Then nothing works. My system is blocked, or there's a problem on the platform for whatever reason. And maybe it's because someone who worked, before us in the morning, that would be India, that they broke something in the system, but nobody knew about it. So we spent hours fixing it. And then eventually the next day when they come online, they're like, oh, we fixed this problem that nobody knew about. And then the same happened to the people in the US. The people in Cambridge, we work on something and there is a problem, there's an issue, but we don't tell anybody. We tell each other because we just shout it out over our desks, but we don't tell other people. So much time was being wasted and frustration. And it started coming from, we went from a team that was united to like, oh, but this side always causes this type of problem, but this side. I just went to my boss and say, you know what? I love what we're doing. I think it's great. It's great engineering work that we're working on, but I just cannot work this way. We need more organization. We need to find a way to talk to each other. Of course, this happened way before hybrid and remote working. We didn't have Slack of all of those tools. But I'm sure that people listening to me could feel some of that frustration in them when you are in a position where it's already easy because you like your job, right? But the conflict that doesn't even need to happen based on things that can be fixed, right, happens all the time. So I took over and I told my boss, look, I'm just going to take over for a while until we stabilize that. And then either you bring someone to do this job or I reduce my engineering work and I just do the leadership work. Give me a month or so and we're starting being really excited. We had more calls coordinated. If someone breaks something, it happens, it's software. We know that. But then the best part was that we could tell each other, avoid working in this area. There is no point you going out and start drilling somewhere when we've already told you, don't drill there. There's a problem, right? So that's kind of how we started fixing the issue. We started working well together, having what I called now deconstructing team building exercises. It's something that's starting back in the days. We were busy. We didn't have a lot of calls, but I will create small things that we can do to talk about the issues. What side has issues and how can we talk about that without pointing blame at the other side, but focus on fixing the issue that we have on each side together. So if you believe that your people are not happy at work, there's a lot of silos happening. There's a lot of negative conflict happening. Then think about what could be at the root cause. Just don't stop at the high level listening to she said, he said, what happens, but really go down and start thinking at the level of how can I bring my team together to understand each other, understand culture differences. That is really important. How can I devise sessions for people to understand personality types? And that's one of my favorite things. It's something I talk about a lot. And in fact, I've just been booked to talk at a big about 300 people at an automotive industry clients that would like me to talk about personality types because I believe that's an issue that they are probably dealing with at the moment. So if you have those kind of issues, it's very simple to start working on them. Don't make it taboo not to talk about who we are at work. We need to talk about that so that we know that there are some people that like things to be done a certain way, others like it a certain way. How do we meet in the middle? So collaboration is really, really important. As I've mentioned before, the example I shared with you shows a huge aspect of collaboration. Of course, touch on leadership and direction as well, but a lot of aspect of collaboration, all the way from the tools that you are using to collaborate, the policies, the handbook, the how we are going to talk to each other, and how are we going to get to know each other so that we can reduce the level of negative conflict and also deal with the positive conflict in a way that we know it's got nothing to do with ego. It's really about doing what's best for the company in the way that everybody's voices can be heard. I'm sure you probably have a few questions going on and you already eager to go out and start putting some of the things that I've mentioned in practice. As I said before, I have a lot of materials, especially on deconstructing team building exercises. Go on my YouTube channel, just search for that. I'm sure you're going to have a few videos pop up. If you are worried about this idea of remote and hybrid, again, I've done so many interviews and so many lives on that. There is a wealth of videos out there on my YouTube. Don't be shy. They're free. Just make the most of it. For anyone who would like to go into details into any of those, then please do get in touch with me. I do have virtual coffees. They are free. Bring your own coffee and your own croissant or whatever, and we can have a chat on how I can give you more tools to help you answer the question, why my people are not happy, and start, taking the lead and start moving things in the right direction to improve the happiness at work, which leads to customer being satisfied and more money in your pockets. In the meantime, especially based on absolutely everything that we've looked at today, let's design a happy and productive workplace playgrounds together.